I know that you're from going from school, you knew that acting was going to be an essential part of your life.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how that happened?
It was all I wanted to do from a young age, but I didn't think of it really as a career until I was probably 12, maybe. I wanted to do musical theatre. That was the big, that's my mum and I went to go and see every musical. Every time we could go into London, we'd go and see musical. We went to New York together, just the two of us, and went and saw
What did you see?
Cabaret. We saw the original,
Cabaret.
the Sam Mendes production at Studio 54. We saw that. I told this to him the other day, but I saw Kevin Bacon in a one-man show at the Walter Kerr Theatre. I forget the name of it. But I then years later, went and did The Seagull at the Walter Kerr, and it was a really crazy kind of full circle thing. So I was sort of wanted to do musical theatre, then was slowly sort of realising that was quite a big job in terms of dance and song, and I wasn't a dancer, and I kind of was a choir singer, but not a singer. Was not enormously interested in film so much. I mean, I loved movies. I loved, all of my favourite films.
Which ones were they?
Like Indiana Jones and The Last Crusade. And, I liked sort of Spielberg, like proper movies. And then I slowly realised that it was more kind of theatre, that I was probably just straight theatre, just doing plays. So it was when I was I auditioned for a bunch of drama schools, basically, and didn't get into any of them. But that was my first sort of big sort of attempt to kind of make it a job, which didn't go very well. But then I found another kind of way in, luckily. Actually, right around the corner from here to go to Riverside Studios to do Youngblood Theatre Workshop, which was an amazing, I don't know if it still happens, but it was an incredible experience. It was once a week. I did it for months, where you would come together with a bunch of other actors of a similar age. But I'd never acted really with boys before. I'd only, because I'd been
at an
all-girls school, and for people from all different walks of life. And it was a lot of improvisation, a lot of just... You would just be sitting all in a circle on the floor, and then you would suddenly have to be in the middle of the room doing a scene about something. And it was just I loved it, and made really good friends. And we did, I think, one or two little productions there. And then I auditioned for a new version of Pride and Prejudice, and that was my first job.
Is this when you were working in pubs? Did you have to have a job that wasn't...
Yeah, I left school, and that was, I had not gone into drama school, so I was taking a gap year, and it was in that year that I worked in the pubs, Yeah. Do
you remember the food and what you ate?
It was like proper just pub food, yeah. I mean, I worked on a barge, like a restaurant sort of barge in Marlow, but I was serving, I was never making. And then I worked in 2 pubs at the same time, just picking up shifts in whichever one. But I liked the sort of kind of energy of it. I think I also quite like being in charge of... giving people drinks. That I was behind this bar and I was 18, I probably looked about 15. And yet I was sort of pulling pints for, big burly men, and it felt kind of like quite a powerful position to be in. Yeah.
It's a performance, isn't it?
Yeah.
And acting and cooking. I think the reason I always say that a lot of actors like to work. Of course, it suits them, to work part-time in a restaurant, or if they're trying to pursue their career, is that there's a lot of drama in a restaurant.
Yeah, and the energy
in the
as well.
kitchen at home.
Yeah.
Do you remember what you ate in those years? I mean, when I talked to Emily Blunt, it was, hamburger after hamburger after hamburger, and eating and eating and eating. She ate so, she would describe, even when she had small parts, that she would have 2 hamburgers before going on stage, and being in school. But do you remember when you were away from, or did you live with your parents when you were?
I didn't. I'm Pride and Prejudice. I moved out for that job, and I do remember that we were all in corsets, and I remember for the first, and it was a very lovely production. It actually set me up for disappointment in future productions, because we stayed in such nice hotels, and the catering was so lovely, and I remember for the first month or so we had like really delicious like snacks, but yummy cakes and biscuits and like delicious granola-y things that we could nibble on. And after a while, they had to take out our costumes because and our corsets had to get sort of loosened a bit because we'd all been having a lovely time. And then I moved into a flat with 2 boys in Highgate, and I think I ate, literally pot noodles whilst I did theatre. I also got into a habit of having to have a double espresso before I did a show. I didn't eat really before the play. I did a play at the Royal Court straight after.
Which one was that?
It was called 40 Winks. It was a Kevin Elliott play. It was a real shock for me because it went, it was Pride and Prejudice was a summer of, real kind of sort of basically a massive party. We had the best time. And I was delighted. It was Royal Court is my favourite theatre in the world, hands down, 10 million times. But I was playing a girl with narcolepsy who also might have been a victim of rape. I mean, it was really kind of harrowing and in a very kind of surrounded by real heavyweight, incredible actors. And I suddenly thought, oh my gosh, this is not what I don't know how to do this at all. But I was in real kind of just theatre
And you
mode.
would have an espresso. The espresso started then? The espresso before the play. So
And I did that for years through theatre, probably until I did Girls and Boys.
Yeah, and
I stopped.
Well, I'd love to talk about because that the Royal Court is actually our local theatre because we live further down the King's Road.
I love it.
What makes you love a theatre?
I mean, I think that was my first theatre, so that was special. And then I went back there and did the Seagull when I was 21. Christopher Hampton, Ian Rickson, and that was just completely. That role, everything about it. I feel like I kind of. I don't know. There was something about the pre-show thing. I would go underneath I'd go down all the way down to the bottom of the stairs, all the way back up again. I'd run around like a mad woman before. So because when Nina comes on, she's really out of breath, and I wanted to be genuinely out of breath. So I would run around, and then I would sort of burst onto stage at the last minute. And the smell of it, I don't know, there's just so much about that theatre. Every time I step in there, I just feel like, I just love it.
I love it too.
Yeah.
And so you would have your espresso before the play, and then afterwards, would you do that thing of going out to dinner with a bunch of friends, people who'd seen the play? And
sometimes, I mean, what I also love about the Royal Court is the downstairs bar. So I'd always just go down there afterwards, and we all would, you know. I don't remember eating. I remember eating cornichons, little cornichons, a glass of red wine, and loads of little cornichons. Back then. But I don't remember going out for food much. I just sort of think I'd probably just go home and eat Weetabix or something at the end of the night, you know.
Was money an issue?
Yeah, at that time, it was, it was minimum wage theatre. So it was, and I was spending money on living in Highgate, in, paying rent up there. So it wasn't, I ate quite a lot of cereal.
Do you remember when food became a kind of measure of your success, that you could say, I can afford to eat well now because I'm earning more money?
Yeah, I think I got really into sushi when I lived in New York.
Yeah.
And I was living in New York probably, what was I doing? I was doing theatre there, but I was also doing a bit of film. I did the film Steve McQueen called Shame. Yeah. And I remember sitting down with with a financial advisor, sort of figuring out working in America and he looked at my bank statements and he said, oh, you seem to have spent lots of money on rent and sushi. I was like, oh,
that's pretty good. That's what we did when we lived in Paris. It was the same thing. But in those days you had checkbooks, and we used to look at our checkbook at the end of the month with the little stubs, and basically it was all restaurants. Yeah. When we weren't working, we were just eating out and exploring. Because you do learn about a culture through the food too, don't you?